This is Kayla and Stephanie's teaching demo for Lesson 2, Plants and Habitats for EDL 603.
Our outline for this lesson is the introduction to class, objectives and standards, our materials, our lesson activity, strategies, and interaction, differentiation, review, and assessment.
Our class is a second grade class with 15 students. We have 3 emerging levels of proficiency. This is a mainstream general type of class. The languages spoken other than English are Spanish and Italian, and for this lesson, this is a science lesson that will take place during one class period.
The standards for this lesson are the New York State Next Generation Learning Standards Connections to SL5, including digital media and/or visual displays and presentations to clarify or support ideas, thoughts, and feelings. TESOL Standard 4, English language learners communicate information, ideas, and concepts necessary for academic success in the area of science. Content Standards P-LS1-2, plan and conduct an investigation to determine how familiar plants and/or animals use their external parts to help them survive in the environment.
The objectives for our lesson are content. Students will be able to identify the adaptations that desert plants have. They will know and understand why the adaptations help the plant to survive in this habitat. The language objective is students will use academic and content vocabulary to describe and explain the functions of the desert plant's adaptations. Literacy objectives are students will be able to read and write about the adaptation desert plants have. Students will be able to illustrate the key adaptations of a desert plant.
For our materials, the teacher will be using a YouTube video, and the 2 pictures on the left are what will be displayed on the board for the class to see as the teacher goes over the adaptations that plants use to survive in the desert habitat. On the bottom is the book that we will be using, Plants in Different Habitats. We'll be focusing just on the desert portion. On the right side, you will see 3 different worksheets that the students will get to work on. The one has a key with different words that the students will learn to put in place describing a cactus and their adaptations. The other one leaves empty boxes that the students get to write in why those parts help the plant survive in the environment. And the bottom of plant research worksheet is what they will take home, where they get to create their own plant that will survive in a desert habitat based on what they learned in class, including an option to draw the image.
To start our lesson, students will be introduced to the desert habitat by being shown the 2 images on the left. They will observe and then turn and talk with a partner to discuss the observations and wonderings they might have. Then we will share whole class. Students will then be shown the diagram that's on the top right of the cactus's parts. They will be discussing and answering guiding questions with the class and with their partners during this time. They will then watch a short video that introduces the desert habitat and more vocabulary. We will further discuss the cactus's adaptations that are listed on the right. During this time, students will make connections to past learning while identifying key vocabulary. Questions will be generated, and the use of visualizations are strategies that we used. The picture is labeled to organize the key terms that will point to the plant parts.
Lesson: Interaction with the text. Students will read a page from the desert section of the book Plants in Different Habitats by Rebecca Stronger and Bobby Kalman. Some students will be called to read a sentence or 2 from the text. We will further discuss plants in the desert, the adaptations, and the vocabulary. Students will continue, turn and talk with the whole class, and with partners in discussion. Guiding questions will be asked to further discussion of vocabulary during and after the reading.
We incorporated several strategies for this lesson. For the cognitive learning strategies, we made connections to past learning using highlighting and identifying key vocabulary. For metacognitive strategies in this lesson, we used generating questions and using images through visualization. For the language strategies, the use of labeling and using images to communicate key vocabulary. For interaction, students will interact with the teacher in whole group discussions and when the teacher walks around to listen in on partner discussions. Students will interact with partners during the warm-up and reading activities. Students will work independently on their worksheets. All 4 modalities are used for this lesson. Students will speak during class discussions, with the teacher when walking around, and with a partner. Students will read along with the teacher. Students will actively listen throughout the lesson when their teacher speaks, to their peers, and along with the video. Students will also write when doing their worksheets.
Differentiation. During this lesson, students will collaborate in cooperative discussions and turn in talks with a partner. They will think, then share their wonderings with a peer. Students will get to practice what they learned and the new vocabulary while collaborating with their peers. Our lesson has many visuals for the ELL student, especially the one with the IEP. All students will get to draw their own plant. This is especially helpful for our student with the IEP who is not good at formulating full, complete thoughts, written or orally. The extra visuals will help all our learners. The video will also benefit all learners, especially the ELLs and the IEP student. The video incorporates images and sounds to make connections to the content.
These are the worksheets that the students will complete at the end of the lesson. These will be a part of the assessment. The vocabulary and concepts will be reviewed when they complete these worksheets. At the end of the lesson, the students will be asked to share the adaptations of a desert plant that we have just learned. They will also be asked to think of any animals they might think will live in this habitat. To end the lesson, we will think of how these plants differ from other plants in another environment.
Our follow-up homework. For each new habitat we learn about, the students will get to create their own plant that would survive in that habitat. The students will need to use their newly learned facts about how plants survive in that specific habitat and incorporate them onto the worksheet. They also get to illustrate the plant to visually show the adaptations and that they understand the adaptations that help them survive in this environment. You will see the questions on our worksheet titled Plant Research. They get to name their plant, where the plant is found, list 3 adaptations the plant will need for survival in this environment. They get to draw an image of their plant, and then they get to list something that they learned interesting about the habitat that we learned in school that day.
Thank you for watching.